How you doing, sir?
I'm doing good, buddy. We always have a plan of how we think the game's going to go. Our style of play as a team lends itself to that. That doesn't happen to us very much, but if it does, we're very confident that we would be able to go out and Mark's playing at a high level right now. We feel like the passing game's coming, and we feel very comfortable if the game got like that we'd be able to go and do what we need to do to win. The passing game's been the slowest thing for us to develop, and I think you point to that obviously by the fact that you got a young rookie quarterback. We added Braylon late, and there's a feel in the passing game. There's trust. There's things that you don't develop overnight, and I think obviously we feel like we haven't hit our mark, but we feel like we're getting closer. There's a comfort level now between Mark and Dustin and Jaco and Braylon and even Sean and Thomas and some of those guys where they're kind of beginning to feel what each other is thinking, and that helps. Whereas we've had that in the running game. The running game really hadn't changed from the start of the spring till now. That's kind of been built and it's stayed consistent. Whereas the passing game's been tweaked a little bit because of new faces and things like that. I think people get surprised or could get surprised by the things that we're, capable of doing. We don't have to do that all the time. We have different ways of attacking people. We don't always use those packages, but they're always there if we need them. And so, again, I think, we're a confident group right now in all phases. And I think that'll carry over into this weekend's game.
Well, Brian, could you talk about Mark's ability to throw on the run? I mean, is that something that's out of the ordinary? Is that something that he's been able to innately do? Could you just talk about that?
It's one of the first things, Hutch, that we noticed watching him on film at USC. Obviously, they asked him to do a lot of things where they moved him at USC. And it was one of the things that just immediately jumped off the film. It was like, wow, did you see that throw on the run? A lot of guys can throw on the run to their right. A lot of guys struggle going to their left. And there's a guy that we saw him, whether he's going right, left, short, deep, intermediate, it didn't matter. He just got an ability to get his body turned and get square and make great throws on the move. And it's not easy. We don't spend a lot of time coaching it. That's one of those things that a guy either has it or he doesn't. There's things that you can, from a fundamental standpoint, talk about, but he's obviously got just a great ability to do that. He controls his body, his feet play up underneath him, and but that's nothing new. That's something that we saw coming out of school. We're executing those plays better. Again, it comes down to execution. We've called those plays. We missed some of those plays early in the season, midpoint of the season. Now, again, I think what you see is you go back to the long touchdown against Cincinnati, you look at it, it was well executed. It was a good fake. Mark was on the run. Dustin hit his mark, his landmark, we call it, and the throw was right on the money. So, again, I think it comes back down to execution more than anything. I went to KU my first year because I wanted to stay close to home, and they recruited me right off the bat. But I came to a hard realization, probably should have known it earlier, but that I wasn't good enough to play pro football. It was a hard decision to admit when you're 18 and you think you got the world by its tail. But I realized I wasn't good enough to play in the NFL. But I knew I wanted to be involved with the game. I knew I loved the game. And so at that point I made the decision to transfer. And I wanted to put myself in a position to go someplace where I could best prepare myself to learn an aggressive offense. And I took 5 trips in 7 days with my mom right before training camp started at KU and settled on Florida. At the time, Steve he'd come from Duke, he'd been at Florida for a couple of years and was doing a great job. And so I made the decision to go down there. And he had a great impact on me, and we had a lot of success. We won 4 SEC championships. I didn't play very much, but I played behind a Heisman Trophy winner, is what I tell people. So, but it was a lot of fun. It was a big part of I made the right decision. When I decided I wanted to get into coaching, my parents have never pushed me into anything, but they wanted me to think about that. But I think it was flattering to my father. I mean, he wasn't around a lot. I've said this all the time. My mom raised me. He wasn't there that often. He was working. But I think it's flattering to him that the time that he was around and the things that he included me in made it so special that I just loved the game. I loved being in the locker room before games. I remember talking to Joe Montana before the AFC Championship game. I mean, I'm just a kid. And, I mean, those are the things that offset some of the, the tough stuff. The hours and the long days, the long nights, the firings, the hirings, the movings, that stuff, those relationships with people, and the things that you do where you have a challenge each and every week, and you come up every Sunday night and you know whether you were successful that week or not. And something about that, I like that competitive side of it. Sure. Rex calls the defenses, but just like I call the offense, doesn't mean that other guys aren't involved. Bill Callahan's got a huge voice. Matt Cavanaugh, Anthony Lynn, Mike Pettine's a heck of a football coach. The thing that I noticed immediately when they got here was the relationship between Mike and Rex is so close that they can have those occasional arguments and disagreements that come up as coaches, and nobody gets offended. You talk about it, you discuss it. Sometimes you agree, sometimes you agree to disagree, but you move forward. And I think their relationship is so strong that, that's what makes the relationship work so well. But, Mike's creative. I mean, he's aggressive, a lot like Rex. And, I go to him with a lot of questions that I have during the course of a week about how they might play a certain coverage of this look and what their adjustments are. And, again, I think, he probably does not get enough credit that he deserves.
How disruptive can that Colts defensive line be?
Well, I think obviously very disruptive. When we played them, obviously Mathis didn't play. Freeney was on whatever they called it, a pitch count. They're more able to disrupt, obviously playing up there in the noise. They have a great get-off, especially in the silent count. But they're what we call one-gap penetrating defensive linemen, which means they're not stopping to read things. They're trying to knock people back. And if you don't do a good job of controlling your cadence, if you don't do a good job of getting off on the snap count, they can create piles for people, and it makes it cloudy for the back with his reads, or the quarterback trying to go through his reads, and it can be tough. So we got to do a good job of, again, using our cadence, controlling them. It's not going to surprise them that we're going to have people looking at them and hitting them and doing different things. They get that all the time. But we're going to try to do things to make sure that we know they're good players, and by the middle of the first quarter, they're going to know that we know they're good players.
You mentioned the noise. How do you guys combat that as an offense, and what are you guys doing to prepare for the noise factor, I guess, this week, so to speak?
Yeah.
You played there obviously a month ago, but still, it's be a little bit louder, I guess, Sunday probably.
Well, San Diego was as loud as it's been all season, and I think early in the game, I think we had one or two issues. So that's been something that we've addressed. If you looked out there today, we had two sets of speakers. Usually there's just one. Today we had two sets of speakers, kind of both shooting in at us. But, it's definitely an advantage for defenses. But, again, especially from the line standpoint, they've been playing together so long, Rod, that there's so much nonverbal communication that goes on. That allows us to have some of the success that we've had. But it makes it, more difficult. But, again, you got to maintain your poise. We kind of, keep your poise in the noise. It's going to be loud. There's going to have some plays where they do some things that kind of catch us off guard because of that. But we just got to be able to limit that throughout the course of the game.
Brian, your dad had a lot of famous close calls getting to the Super Bowl. How much of that, did you experience with him? How much of the heartache did you go through? And now here you are on the verge of a Super Bowl, and just what would it mean to you to do it? And what do you think your dad is feeling?
Yeah. Well, I'd be remiss if I didn't mention this, and I'll answer your question, Rich. But I got to throw out a compliment to Rex. He came in and grabbed me on Tuesday, I think it was, and said that he was going to send my dad a game ball from this last game winning in San Diego, and that meant the world to me. So they had it painted up. They sent it down to him. He's coached in the East-West Shrine game, and obviously that meant a lot to him. That it meant a lot to me and my father that Rex took the time to think about that. But I was there for the drive. I was not at the fumble game the following year in 1987 up in Denver. I was there for the championship game in Buffalo when Montana got knocked out right before the half. Buffalo went on to beat them. But again, I think those were difficult times. They were things when you look back, you're like, how can that happen to one person, one team? But he's always said he never wanted his legacy to be defined by wins and losses.